Director Jarvis, do you remember April of this year coming before one of these committees, the Oversight Committee?
Yes, sir.
And between April 16th and October 1st, you were not shut down. You had the ability to operate fully. Is that correct?
That's correct.
So for those many months after you promised to deliver us the discovery, including 400 pages previously identified before that hearing, and didn't do so, you did so out of contempt for your promise to this committee? Or was it just an oversight? Do you just not know that you promised to deliver documents related to discovery and you don't do it?
No, sir. Those decisions are made by the Department of the Interior.
Well, I'm going to take that decision away from you. I will be issuing a subpoena to you before the close of this hearing, and I will expect, as soon as the government reopens, for you to comply with it. Additionally, I'm going to ask our clerks to go through the record and find each and every document and request made during this hearing, and again, issue a subpoena, since it's very clear that the promises you make have no value because someone in the Department of Interior simply doesn't bother to deliver documents already known. And those documents are related to our accusation of prior abuse under sequestration. So Mr. Connolly may want to say you're exemplary. I find it questionable. Let me ask you a very simple question I started this hearing with. Whose land is it? Is it your land? Is it the government land? Or do you oversee the people's land? And please think before you answer.
It's the people's land.
If it's the people's land, then don't you have an obligation to absolutely positively mitigate to the greatest extent possible the adverse effects on people?
I operate under the law passed.
I know. Don't tell me about the law. Do you have an obligation? You're restrained by laws, but do you have an obligation to deliver to the best of your ability with the limited funds you may or may not have?
I absolutely do.
Then in the case of Ms. Eberly, isn't it true that in fact every day her organization saves the American people money they would otherwise spend to operate that park, or the park would be gone? Isn't that true? You kept talking about the $1 million you delivered. She delivered twice, 3 times, 4 times that in value through volunteers, through fundraising. Isn't that true?
Absolutely. We love our partners.
Okay. So here's your public-private partner, and you shut her down and cost her far more than any potential savings. You spent money to barricade so that she, in fact, couldn't operate, and you did so without prior notice. And let me ask you an important question. What was the first day in your job? You talked about 2016 and what you're anticipating and who you're working with. What was the first day you began asking the question over the last year? We'll just use 2013. What do I do in the case of a shutdown related to a lack of appropriations? What was the first day?
Well, we were facing a potential shutdown in 2011 when the debt
Okay, so since 2011, your testimony is that in fact you've known there's a potential for a shutdown.
That's correct.
You were with the Park Service and you were aware of the agreement made with Arizona in 1996. You were aware, could have been aware, of course, Ms. Eberly was not shut down back then. You were aware that, contrary to what was shown in an earlier picture, that in fact the Lincoln Memorial was not closed, as that picture falsely shows, at some earlier barricade. This is a repair period of time. It may, in fact, be an actual picture, but the pictures we have seen show that people walked up. This barricade was not, in fact, keeping people from going. People went all the way up. You'll notice, Mr. DeFazio, you'll notice the construction. This picture is also from that period and shows people actually being seen with the sign up there, going there. The fact is, you had a history and a tradition. Why did you not make the effort and the contacts to find out how to mitigate? Why did you not talk to the mayor's people or representatives? Why was there not an attempt to see what they could do to mitigate it? Why were those contracts not dusted off in preparation? Why didn't you do anything to mitigate this whenever possible? And why did you cause Ms. Eberly to sit there and lose money and perhaps her organization go into an inability to maintain it when, in fact, you know and I know that that road maintenance is being deferred whether she's open or closed? Isn't that true?
I immediately, upon the closure, began to look at the documents from the Grand Canyon.
Okay, that's a great answer, and my time is expiring. You waited till after October 1st and then began, after you asserted pain on people through a lack of planning, you began planning so that a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks after you'd made your point that you could punish the American people by shutting down and taking away assets they cared about. Then you began, because of public opinion, opening back up. For the record, isn't it true that everything you've done to reopen could have been anticipated and done in advance? In other words, if you can reopen her parking lot, then in fact you had the authority never to close it. Isn't that true? The 1860s law didn't change, so isn't it true?
In all due respect, the National Park Service is a very big, complex organization. I did not know about Claude Moore any more than the dozens of others out there. I rely on my field representatives, my superintendents, to tell me, and so what we had to do is we shut it down in compliance with the lapse of appropriations and then immediately began assessing which ones we could reopen. And we did that with Claude Moore. I have over a dozen here more that we've reopened, as well as all
the Grand Canyon's, kind of hard. It gets overlooked. You didn't see it, and we all know that terrorists are going to go in and blow up the Grand Canyon too. So, the fact that you overlooked the Grand Canyon is not credible. We go to the gentlelady from Massachusetts now for her questions, Ms. Song.